A number of branch offices around the world have written to us indicating that there continue to be questions about whether or not it is proper for a brother in an appointed position to wear a beard. After prayerful consideration, the governing body has concluded that there is a need to clarify this matter. The governing body does not have an issue with brothers wearing beards. Why not? Because the Scriptures do not condemn the wearing of beards.
Jehovah's Witnesses are getting rid of their century-old policy against beards. This is a pretty big change to one of the most obviously unbiblical doctrines, but I found how it was announced to be even more interesting than the announcement itself. The news that the Jehovah's Witnesses can wear beards now came from this year's governing body update number 2, presented by Stephen Lett, who's looking puffier than ever. And he doesn't start by addressing the beard issue directly. He starts by mentioning 3 different natural disasters that happened since September, where their kingdom halls got flooded and where one person died in one of them.
In September, our brothers in Greece faced heavy rain and severe flooding. In October, our brothers in Mexico dealt with a Category 5 hurricane, which caused widespread damage. And in November, our brothers in the Philippines experienced a magnitude 6.7 earthquake. Sadly, as a result of the earthquake, one of our dear sisters died.
He doesn't directly say this, but Jehovah's Witnesses always relay natural disasters to signs of the end. The message is very clear. Armageddon is near. And how do you survive Armageddon? Well, by following whatever the governing body tells you without questioning or doubting. As mentioned before, these aren't news, as some of these happened months ago. Stephen is just sharing these to remind Jehovah's Witnesses that they have to obey the governing body because they live in the time of the end. And to ask for free labor and for donations, of course.
Some of you are working hard with disaster relief, and many more of you are making generous donations which allow us to provide the necessities for our brothers and sisters and to rebuild their homes and kingdom halls.
Hey, at least he didn't pretend this time that they help anyone who isn't in the cult. And now that he has properly set the scene and reminded Jehovah's Witnesses of their apocalyptic reason to obey the governing body, he can finally get into the beard topic. And he does this in a roundabout way, reading a cherry-picked Bible verse that says something about Christians recommending themselves as God ministries, and makes the false equivalence of saying, well, how do we recommend ourselves? Well, with our dress and grooming, of course.
But how do we show ourselves to be ministers of the true God? One important way is by our appearance. We all want to reflect well on the God we love and worship. How do we do that? By following Bible principles. For example, consider the principle recorded at 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. Likewise, the women should adorn themselves in appropriate dress, with modesty and soundness of mind, not with styles of hair braiding and gold or pearls or very expensive clothing, but in the way that is proper for women professing devotion to God, namely through good works.
This is the only one verse in the entire New Testament that actually talks about dress and grooming. And it mainly talks about the importance of remaining humble while dressing, instead of using dress and grooming as a way to show off and flex your wealth. But that is obviously not where Stephen Lett is trying to get at.
But does that mean that all of Jehovah's Witnesses make the same choices? Should we wear a uniform or adopt a single form of appropriate dress and grooming? Of course not.
Of course not. Jehovah's Witnesses are some of the Christians with the most amount of rules for dress and grooming. While they technically don't have a uniform, most male Jehovah's Witnesses will always wear a dark suit with a lighter shirt and tie. Besides the rule on beards, there's rules on how long your hair can be if you're a guy, the kind of jewelry that you can wear, the kind of fit that your pants should have, and even the kind of prints that you can wear. Rules are even more strict if you're a woman, since they must always wear a skirt that at least covers down to their knees, or longer whenever they're doing Jehovah's Witness duties, and must never wear any kind of cleavage or show a lot of skin. Stephen Lett wants you to think that Jehovah's Witnesses are diverse because they allow people to wear their traditional garments in some cases. And that's it. There are rules about dress and grooming that no Jehovah's Witness is allowed to go against, like having long hair if you're a guy, or growing a beard if you're a guy, which is why the speech about beards being okay has to exist in the first place. This is nothing but gaslighting from Stephen Lett, and before he tells you that beards are okay, he wants to keep gaslighting viewers with a video retelling the story of beards in the religion.
In patriarchal times, it was customary for men to wear beards. This practice continued among the Israelites. An Israelite man would shave only when he was humiliated or grieving. For example, when the king of Ammon humiliated David's servants by shaving their beards, David protected their dignity by telling them, "Stay in Jericho until your beards grow back, and then return." Centuries later, the prophet Ezekiel shaved his beard and his head to symbolize the great distress and grief that would soon afflict Jerusalem. What about Jesus? Did he too, as an Israelite, wear a beard? For some years, based on the conclusions of certain archaeologists, our publications most often portrayed Jesus as clean-shaven. But in 1968, the Watchtower considered more reliable evidence from both historical sources and the scriptures. None of the four Gospels indicate that Jesus' appearance stood out as different. He did what was customary among Jewish men at that time. He wore a beard.
This is the very first time I have ever seen Jehovah's Witnesses admit that there was a time when they went so far on their hatred against beards that they even drew Jesus clean-shaven. This has absolutely nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses being stupid and following historians who ended up being wrong, as they presented it. This actually happened because Russell had a beard. And when Rutherford usurped his way into power, he was extremely self-conscious about people following Russell instead of following him, which is why he even directly asked people to shave and showed Jesus clean-shaven as a way to distinguish himself and his followers from Russellites who wanted to keep believing what Russell taught. And although they are not going to be truthful about that, we are about to see a little clue into that bit of history.
Our videos and artwork in our publications ever since have consistently portrayed Jesus with a well-groomed beard. By the time the Christian congregation was established, the Romans had adopted the practice of shaving. Were Jewish Christians then expected to shave, or were Gentile Christians expected to grow beards in order to blend in with their Jewish brothers? Evidently not, since the scriptures neither command true worshipers to grow a beard nor command them to shave. This was a matter of personal decision. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, beards were common even among the Bible students, as seen in these photos of Pilgrim brothers who traveled for the organization. Brother Russell, too, wore a beard. One newspaper editor called him a well-groomed minister. He said, "It had never occurred to me he was any different from thousands of other preachers. His soft, white flowing beard is the beard of a patriarch, a father. It gives you confidence." Soon after World War I, shaving enjoyed a resurgence in popularity. In 1919, when this photo of the Pilgrims was taken, most did not have a beard. Therefore, Although our publications said little about the subject at the time, very few brothers grew beards.
They literally just showed how wearing a beard was totally okay with the religion before, but stopped being okay when Rutherford took over. And did you catch that last part? The narrator said that people stopped wearing beards because they saw the people at the top without them. This confirms that this was a move from top to bottom and had nothing to do with biblical principles. Instead, the new narrative is that Jehovah's Witnesses are actually super into what the world considers fashionable, so they obeyed worldly rules of dress and grooming.
Starting in the 1960s, in many lands, beards became associated with those who were rebelling against established authority. Where that was the case, most men, both witnesses and non-witnesses, chose to shave. Because of the negative connotations associated with wearing a beard, most brothers who wore a beard did not serve as ministerial servants, elders, or in other appointed positions. With the passing of time, in some lands, beards became more common and were not associated with rebellion. In those places, some brothers with beards were appointed as ministerial servants and elders. In recent times, the wearing of a beard has become common in many more lands. So, how should we view a brother who chooses to grow a beard today?
The video ended with an intriguing question. How should we view a brother who chooses to grow a beard today?
And after spending half of this update setting up the stage and gaslighting viewers, Stephen Lett finally makes the announcement. And it's the way that he did it that I found the most interesting.
The governing body has asked me to read the following announcement. A number of branch offices around the world have written to us indicating that there continue to be questions about whether or not it is proper for a brother in an appointed position to wear a beard. After prayerful consideration, the governing body has concluded that there is a need to clarify this matter. The governing body does not have an issue with brothers wearing beards. Why not? Because the scriptures do not condemn the wearing of beards. Furthermore, as time has passed, we have noted that in many lands, it is acceptable for men who hold responsible positions in business and government to wear beards. Thus, whether a brother wears a beard is a personal decision. A brother's qualifications to serve as an elder or ministerial servant are based on his spirituality, not on whether he chooses to wear a beard. This direction also applies to special full-time servants at Bethel and those in the field, including special pioneers, missionaries, and circuit overseers. In harmony with Romans 14:4, neither the elders nor any other Christian should feel compelled to judge a brother who chooses to wear a beard. We trust that these comments will help us to remain on guard against anything that might cause division among Jehovah's people. End of the announcement from the governing body.
This is, as far as I can tell, the biggest change in the religion that has come directly from a note from the governing body. That's how doctrine changes here now, by the governing body getting together and writing a little note saying that beards are acceptable now. Not so long ago, these kind of changes came in Watchtower magazines, with articles fully dedicated to gaslighting people into thinking they've found new light thanks to their deep study of the Bible. The cult, however, is moving increasingly into becoming a personality cult. So instead of deep Bible truths, they now simply have to make it official that this new understanding came from the governing body. Because that's all a Jehovah's Witness needs to know for changing their mind. And if you think this is somehow a change to a more progressive version of the religion, think again, because Stephen is about to go into some of the cultiest rhetoric you'll ever hear from the Jehovah's Witnesses, letting every Jehovah's Witness know exactly how this announcement should make them feel.
This direction, however, may raise some questions. For example, here's one. Why is the governing body providing this direction at this time? Well, as recorded at 1 Corinthians 7:31, the Apostle Paul was inspired to write, "The scene of this world is changing."
Why would something written about the world changing 2,000 years ago apply today? But this is a religion about appearances, as Stephen is about to say.
In keeping with the principle of Paul's inspired statement, grooming styles have changed over the years. For example, more and more beards are worn by men in responsible positions who project a respectable appearance. Here's another question. How should we view a brother who decides to grow a beard? Well, we should apply Jesus' counsel found at John 7:24, stop judging by the outward appearance. As we saw in the video, grooming styles have changed over time.
But Jehovah's Witnesses judge each other for their appearance all the time. I still get some Jehovah's Witnesses and some somewhat indoctrinated ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who judge me for painting my nails or for dressing the way that I dress. This religion is one of the very few religions out there that has extremely detailed instructions on how someone in the platform should look. The kinds of clothes that they should wear, the kind of accessories they're allowed to wear, the kind of haircut they're allowed to have, and much more. This is a religion with an obsession over appearances so big that is institutionalized in their rules. But we have to hear yet the cultiest part of the whole talk.
Here's another question. How can we promote unity in light of this direction? Well, after viewing this program, some might have to contend with strong feelings. For example, some might feel as though they've been vindicated, saying, in effect, this is what I've been saying for a long time. This proves that I was right all along. Others might feel disappointed, saying, in effect, I supported the policy about grooming for all those years. Now, I feel let down. But is either reaction appropriate? Not really.
He just admitted that the beard thing was never a biblical thing. And now he's anticipating the most obvious reaction from Jehovah's Witnesses. This beard topic is the topic that every single Jehovah's Witness has to think for at least a bit. So more likely than not, Jehovah's Witnesses might have thought one of two ways. Either you knew it was completely unbiblical and were against it, even in secret, or had internalized the beard prohibition as a way Jehovah's Witnesses differentiate the world or some other thing, and now, therefore, are pissed that this rule is gone. And Stephen is going to tell his followers that both of these reactions are wrong. He's not going to tell you logically why you shouldn't feel this way. He's just going to tell you, yes, but have you heard about this cherry-picked Bible verse that I'll pretend has something to do with the topic, and hence you do too?
Now I urge you, brothers, through the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you should all speak in agreement, and that there should be no divisions among you, but that you may be completely united in the same mind and in the same line of thought. How does that principle apply here?
It doesn't. These were words written 2,000 years ago to the Corinthians, who were divided in how they should be Christians. This has nothing to do with Christians developing unity in anything but their worship. It has nothing to do with the current situation where cult leaders finally got worn down into admitting that beards are not against the Bible. But I'm sure that is the false equivalence that Stephen is about to make.
Well, if we've been promoting our own opinion on this subject, contradicting the guidance from the organization, have we been promoting unity? Have we helped the brotherhood to be completely united in the same line of thought? Clearly not. Any who've done so need to adjust their thinking and attitude. On the other hand, if we've loyally supported the organization's direction over the years, do we have any scriptural reason to regret our course? Certainly not. Jehovah values our loyal service. He also appreciates our humble willingness to be obedient and submissive to the direction we receive from God's organization.
These are cold words. All of this talk about unity and blind obedience and submissiveness to humans has as much biblical basis as their beard prohibition had. But this is what Stephen wants you and every single Jehovah's Witness who's listening to take out of this talk. He spends the whole second half of this talk telling other Jehovah's Witnesses how they are to react and to feel towards this news. And we know that the purpose of this is exclusively to increase control over the remaining Jehovah's Witnesses. Along with this video, there was a letter sent to all elders in the Jehovah's Witness religion. And the only purpose of this letter is to maintain control of the congregation, perpetuating this unity that Stephen is talking about. It repeats to the elders what Stephen just said, entrusting the elders with the responsibility of making sure every Jehovah's Witness feels like this, and giving them the gaslighting techniques Stephen outlined in this video. That's because this is all about the only thing this cult cares about: control. But let's see what Stephen has to say to close this historical announcement.
In conclusion, are we not grateful for this balanced direction regarding beards? Jehovah has dignified us. He allows each brother the freedom to choose whether or not he will wear a beard. We're confident that all of you are determined to keep pace, adjust your views as needed, and continue to serve Jehovah loyally, promoting love and unity among your brothers and sisters.
Stephen wants you to think this is somewhat dignifying that they're allowing Jehovah's Witnesses to decide whether or not they want to grow a beard. And I know a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses will totally buy what Stephen Lett is saying and start saying this is a sign of the Jehovah's Witnesses becoming more mainstream. That's obviously what Stephen wants you to believe, but it's not what I believe is happening here. This is all about control. Stephen didn't say, hey, you know what, we're gonna stop judging people for their outward appearance, so from now on you can show up to the meetings and give speeches dressed however you see fit. It's up to you. Women can wear cleavage and short skirts. We know your Christian guided conscience will guide you to do what's right. No, Stephen Lett just announced that they're getting rid of one rule, a famous one, sure, of the thousands they have around dress and grooming. And all of those rules about dress and grooming put together make up just one reason out of the many reasons why this cult is a cult and not a mainstream religion. This is like if you were kidnapped kidnapped, and after like several days of being kidnapped, your kidnappers give you a razor and tell you that you can shave if you want. Would you think that means they're getting closer to releasing you? Of course not. You're still in captivity. They're just making it slightly less uncomfortable for you to be in captivity. Probably even because they don't want you to become desperate enough to try to escape by yourself. And that is exactly what's happening here. I believe that since the pandemic, a lot of people stopped reporting hours and grew a beard in the comfort of their home when nobody was looking. This means that when they went back to the meetings, there would have been fewer hours being reported than ever, and more men asking why the hell they're not allowed to grow a beard than ever. Based on my own observations, of course, this pandemic made them experience the most important loss in members that they have had in this whole generation. This, to me, is the equivalent of the organization realizing that an important amount of Jehovah's Witnesses were going against the rules more than ever. They're not formalizing these things that are completely useless for the cult and that Jehovah's Witnesses have been asking for. That's why the whole second part of the speech focuses on what the governing body actually wants to do, to regain control over its remaining believers by giving them fewer reasons to leave without actually having to give them real freedom. None of the reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult have changed before or after this announcement. The minds of the Jehovah's Witnesses are still hostages of the governing body. This isn't a way of normalizing their religion, as Stephen Lett will want you to believe. This is the opposite, a desperate way of trying to cling to the control they used to have among its members. For this religion to be less controlling with this move, they would have had to get rid of all of their dress and grooming rules. That would have actually given Jehovah's Witnesses freedom, not just giving less than a third of their followers the option to grow a beard if they want to. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you aren't closer to actual freedom. This isn't how actual freedom feels like. This is just your kidnapper giving you a razor and telling you that now you can shave if you want. Besides that, nothing is actually changing. You want me to actually buy that the religion is going to end by becoming mainstream? Well, show me them getting rid of their disfellowshipping policy, their blood doctrine, their homophobia, their misogynist rules, their non-mandatory reporting rules, the concept of apostasy, their political isolationism. Hell, I'll even take getting rid of their voting prohibition. That's pretty